Slaughter Harvey for an interview for our oral history project here. Attorney Slaughter, you agreed to be interviewed this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
For the purposes of Smith Robertson Museum and Cultural Center, its oral history project.
Yes, sir.
I would like you to begin, Attorney Harvey, by giving us some understanding of your background, where you were born, where you were born, when you were born, where you went to school, that kind of background, if you would, please.
Okay. I was born, strangely enough, in Jeffrey Memorial Hospital, which was an African-American hospital on Ferry Street, right across from Collins Funeral Home. And I was the second daughter born to my parents. My father, W.L. Slaughter, was from Tougaloo, and my mother, Olivia Kelly, was also from Tougaloo. They were both Tougaloo College students when
Were they native to this area?
They were both natives from Tougaloo. They were both from Tougaloo.
Oh, okay.
My father was raised on what is now Pear Orchard Road, and his parents sold that property for $50 an acre when he left to go to school at UCLA in 1957. So that was somewhat, catastrophic for us. My mother's father was George Kelly. Her mother died when she was 4. Papa had a street at Tougaloo named after him, Kelly Street, which is right over from off of County Line. That street was named after Papa. So I was born in June 18th, 1946. We stayed at Tougaloo for 1 year, and then we moved. My father got a job at Tougaloo in Meridian, and became coach at Harris High, which is now Harris Junior College. And our family moved to Meridian. Now I was the second, so I had one sister, Cheryl, who is 2 years older than I am. And we moved to Meridian. We stayed in Meridian until I was 8. We then moved to Forest. My father got a job as coach at Hawkins High School. And I've made Forest my home ever since then.
All right. Now, how'd you get to Tougaloo?
Had no choice. They said my parents both were Tougaloo students. My grandfather, George Kelly, lived in Tougaloo. My grandmother, Fannie Jane Hayden Slaughter, graduated from Tougaloo High School. My great-grandmother graduated from Tougaloo Daniel Hand School, and her name was Anna Battle Hayden. So I had no choice.
All right. Okay. And you graduated from high school where?
I graduated from high school in Forest, Hawkins High School.
Hawkins High School in Forest. Okay. All right. And what year was that?
That was in 1963.
1963. Were you aware of what was going on in the state at that time as it related to civil rights activities?
Yeah, I was aware. Jess Brown had come to Forest, I want to say in 1960 or even 1958, tried a case where a black man was accused of sexually assaulting a white girl whose parents owned a store. And I had left school without permission to witness his performance in court.
Did they allow you?
Well, I saw some of it. I had to leave.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That's interesting. So what did that say to you? I mean, you heard some of the case. You were aware of this black person being tried for sexual assault. What did that say to you?
Well, my parents were
justice.
Well, my parents were both very tuned in to the realities of life. And our next door neighbors were white. My father kept us segregated and separated from them. We never played with them, even though sometimes we wanted to play with them. He would never let us play with them. We were never permitted to go to the movies because we had to sit up in the balcony, and Daddy never permitted that. We never rode the buses because Daddy would not. My father was just a kind of man who would not let anybody make him such second class or any of his children or my mother. So we never put ourselves out where we had.
You were aware of your parents' feelings from say from 1954, the 54 decision, and how that impacted education for black people in the
Oh,
state?
yes, my parents kept us very well informed, and my father resented any kind of inequity, regardless of color. He just resented that, and sometimes I think...
How many siblings in the
I
family?
have 5 sisters.
Five sisters.
And no brothers.
No brothers.
No brothers. I mean, I tell them all, I think I came out to be the one getting the fight.
5 sisters. Okay. Where were you in the 5?
I was number 2.
You were
I
number
was
2 in the
second.
5. Where are all of them today?
Okay, my older sister Cheryl is chairman of the health department at Murfreesboro in Tennessee. My third sister, well, the third one is Charlotte Moman. She used to be branch director at Margaret Walker. She's now deputy director, I believe, in the library here in Jackson. The fourth one is Cynthia. Cynthia is a school attendance officer, and she's also alderwoman in Forest. She was the first black alderwoman in Forest. Then Clarice works at, she's a teacher at Martin Luther King School in Rex, Georgia, out from Atlanta. She was one of the first stewardess with Southern Airlines way back to the USO. And then Carolyn is a teacher in Oregon. No, it's Washington, some part of Washington. She recently moved there.
Carolyn. Is that the state of Washington or D.C.?
State of Washington.
State of Washington.
State of Washington.
Carolyn. Is she the youngest?
She's the youngest. So it's Cheryl, Constance, Charlotte, Cynthia, Clarice, and Carolyn. And my parents referred to us as the 6 C's.
The 6 C's. 6 C's.
And they had a store.
Who did?
My parents owned a convenience store.
Oh.
It was called 6 C's.
In Forest?
In Forest, and it was the very first black business that was not like a beauty shop or barber shop. Now, my daddy became president of the NAACP. There were a lot of pressures put on him and taxes and problems. So I bought the store in 1977.
Okay.
And I leased out the store. My office is now physically located in that 6 C's building.
In the 6 C's building.
Right. So some people refer to my office, or to my practice, even my practice, as 6 C's law firm, 6 C's law firm.
Okay, now, Tougaloo. How were you influenced in Tougaloo during your undergraduate days then?
Well,
What were your interests? What did you get involved in? And, just give us an understanding. Your tracks.
I went to Tougaloo. Well, let me back up. My older sister, Cheryl, was an accelerated student. She went to Tougaloo in 1960. The first year, she was a straight A student. The second year, she decided that she wanted to just see another part of Tougaloo. So she left Tougaloo and joined the service.
Oh. What year was that? Do you remember?
I want to say 61.
1961?
Okay. So she was there with Joan Trumpile, Reuben Anderson, and those guys. I think Ann Moody as well. So I got to know that part of Tougaloo through my older sister. I went to Tougaloo, and she was accelerated, so she was 14 when she went to Tougaloo. She was very, very brilliant girl.
That's the older sister.
That's the older sister. Well, it was when my time came to go as an accelerated student. My father would not let me go. He wanted me to graduate from high school and wanted me to do other things. And also, I think he probably thought I was too young, and he probably felt that he made a mistake by letting Cheryl go so young. So I went to Tougaloo when I was 15.
15.
But I turned 16. 6 days after Medgar was killed. I met Medgar when I went to Tougaloo. I went to Tougaloo the summer that I graduated, and I was part of the National Science Foundation summer program, where young black kids were encouraged to have get an education in the sciences. I went along with me, Bobby Brown, Jane Burroughs, who's now Jane Sargent, Dolores Campbell, who's now Dolores Stamps, just many kids. And
where'd you go?
to Tougaloo.
Under the National Science.
It was a national science program that was
On
held
campus.
on campus
Oh,
in Tougaloo. And during that time, we were personally introduced to Medgar. He really was like a Pied Piper as far as I was concerned. I just fell in love with him, and his message was probably more appealing than anything I'd ever heard. And he was a strong black man who had a sense of pride that just was attractive. But we had decided we were going to get active in the NAACP, and I was going to be a doctor. I was to major in chemistry, and had excellent grades in chemistry. But the only thing about it is I could not stand the sight of blood, and so it was going to be a problem. The night that Megan was killed, I was destroyed, because I had decided that I wanted to be a doctor, and I also wanted to make certain I would, save poor black people because they couldn't pay.
Okay.
So when he was killed and everything that happened after that, that probably had much more impact on my life insofar as my investment of my time than anything else. So when he was murdered, my whole life changed. The next semester, I went ahead and pre-med, but I changed and became a pre-law student.
Why?
Because I realized that I could probably do more good with the legal system, because it was a legal system that permitted him to be murdered. It was the legal system that kept him out of Ole Miss. It was a legal system that caused Tougaloo to have to exist. We should have been able to be free, and if we wanted to talk with white people and have relationships with whites, we should not have had to come to a safe place. That should have been a given.
Okay. Was George on there by that time?
He was there.
Okay. And was he the president?
No, he was not the president at the time.
Chief Finance Officer?
He was the fiscal officer.
Fiscal officer. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Keep on. And what kind of company did you keep? And what kinds of other extracurricular activities, if any, did you get involved in?
I was involved in almost all aspects of college life in Tougaloo. The first year I stayed off campus with my grandparents because I wanted to focus primarily on my lessons. And so I became almost an A student. But at the same time, I was active in all phases of campus life. I met Joan Trumpire, who was one of the young women who sat in at Woolworth. I fell in love with Joan and Dory Latner, Joyce Latner. And those girls, I just really just was attracted to them because they were real people. I then became very active in the sorority.
In what?
In the sorority. Delta Sigma Theta sorority.
Okay.
One of the things that really attracted me to that sorority was the fact that we were doing public service work. And instead of playing games like walking around on one foot and all that kind of crazy stuff, we would register people to vote. And you impressed your big sisters by voter registration. And I recall that I spent several nights, late into the nights, registering people over in the Mayfair apartments, over probably what is considered the worst part of Jackson, over by the Lanier. And little did I realize that I had taken my life in my hand back then. My main thing was to get folks to register, and I got it. And I think I probably ended up with more than any of my little sisters. So I realized that this sorority really would be an outlet for me to do really what I wanted to do and what Medgar challenged all of us to do. So I became a Delta. I became vice president of the sorority. Later became president. I was also editor-in-chief of the yearbook. We had the first yearbook that had color.
Did you know Memphis Norman?
I knew Memphis was Memphis was my cousin.
Was your cousin?
We cannot tell how, but he was from Wiggins, Mississippi, and so was my mother. And Joan called me last week and told me that he had passed. And so we've had to deal with...
Where is Joan, by the way?
Joan is in Virginia.
In Virginia?
In some part of Virginia.
Joan Trumpa?
Uh-huh. And I'll get you her, I have her address there. So I mean,
So Medgar was your,
Memphis,
Memphis was your cousin?
he's my cousin. I think it's like third cousin.
Hmm.
But now he was not there when I was there. He was, well, part of the time he was there, but he was there with my sister. But I just got real close to Joan, and Joan and I and Dory have always stayed in contact with each other. Robert Honeysuckle and Joyce, his wife, I just got to be a part of that. Then I got very active in the Student Government Association, and I was vice president of the Student Government, which was also the Chief Justice, and then I became president of the student body. I think I was the first female to be president of the student body.
Very good. Okay. Anything else you want to tell me about your Tougaloo days? Am I missing anything?
I think our Tougaloo days, unfortunately, I had experiences that were really confusing as far as a young man is concerned.
Your philosophy?
Well, yeah.
How did you develop?
At Tougaloo, I had very little support from the black faculty.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all of my support invariably came from the white faculty. And Dr. Berensky, who played a very, very pivotal role in my life. And it was the diversity.
Ideologically, you were formed by?
My father and my mother. My mother always saw the good in everybody. And when she was at Tougaloo, there were no black instructors. They were all these older white people who came down from the north to help poor blacks. And so Mama had that kind of pull, that kind of influence on you. And Dad always respected people who respected themselves. And
Would you call your folks religiously active? Were they?
I called my mother
Your mom?
very religiously.
Mom was very
active.
religious.
I called my father a very personal man who had his belief in God, but one who believed that people had to help themselves, and one who resented the
He
system.
believed in a faith to free the people.
Yes, indeed.
Did you ever read that book?
No, I haven't, but I've
Cedric
heard about
Belvin?
it. I've heard of it.
You've heard of it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I read it in 1944. So you knew that
Well, I was
did me
about to
some
say,
good.
yeah, I was just going to say, that helped you. That was
It did
for
me
a minute, yeah.
Okay. All right, that's good. That's good. So politically, where were you politically during that time?
Very active.
No, your thinking, your political ideology.
I
Where
just felt that black people had to come together and coalesce and get behind each other so that we could have the political power that was rightfully ours. And that's why I'm saying I went through so many changes, because at certain points in time, I was anti-white altogether. After Medgar was killed, I just got furious, but I still had very good relationships with white folks on that campus. In fact, I turned to white folks and could trust them more than I could with black folks on that campus.
You say,
And that's
would you say you
unfortunate.
had strong nationalistic pull as far as black nationalism? was
Yeah,
concerned?
oh yeah, I was very much into that.
You were very much
Oh,
into
yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of militant
yeah.
stance?
That was part of the thing I said, looking at it in retrospect. There was one man on that campus, Medgar is my idol.
Okay.
But during the time when we were talking about black power, I just had developed a love for Stokely Carmichael that was just, I would walk miles for him. And I think part of the thing that kind of got to me.
Didn't have that charisma.
He did, but I think one thing that really happened to me, and it just sort of knocked me, is that he talked all this black power, and then I happened to see him with a white girl. And then I realized,
We all have our contradictions.
I know, and I realized, but there was nobody that could tell me I had respect and admiration for him until he died. Because, when you stand up to the system, you have my respect. And I think it was during that time that I got to meet you. And, it was like, you were not from this area. but you had a better understanding and a greater appreciation for our plight than we did.
Yeah.
And it put things in a different perspective, because a lot of times you're so close to the forest you can't see the trees.
But you know, I was a little bit more mature and had been on the battlefield a long time.
I
So
know
came
that.
to see.
But you could relate so well to those of us who had never been on the battlefield. That makes a difference.
I had to do that.
There are a lot of people who've been on the battlefield who cannot relate to those who had not been on the battlefield.
Well, that's true.
And you were able to do that. And the thing that was outstanding
No, were you
about...
coming here to talk about me?
No, I'm just saying, we're talking about really what, the thing that made it is that you would meet people where they were in their lives, and you would not presume certain things. There were others who made those presumptions, and they were false, and consequently, instead of helping people to grow, they were crippled. That might have been for several of the people who had a similar approach that you did. The other thing is that there were some of you who came down and who've been here and have refused to leave, and that's a plus. There are some of you who came down who refused to leave, but it's not a plus.
That's true.
So, I say that with all deference, my respect for the warriors is the respect that I share with young people. For instance, this morning, the role that you played on has created the climate that we now enjoy. My only concern is that we don't lose it. So it's
It's a struggle to keep it.
It's a struggle. It's a serious struggle. But I also know that with Dr. Berinsky, the role of Dr. Berinsky, who was he's from Germany. Dr. Berinsky played more of a role in my life than people would imagine. He prepared me as a black woman to go to the University of Mississippi School of Law. That's retarded. How can a German prepare a black woman to go to Ole Miss where white folks are? He did, and I guess that was one of the pledges that I made and agreements I made with God when I went there. Lord, if you let me out of this hellhole as it was when I was there, I promise you that I will make certain that nobody else from Tougaloo comes to this university as retarded as I was. I went back, I graduated January 28th of 1970. I went back to Tougaloo, and this guy named Joe Wong, he was a professor, he was our chairman of the political science department. I told him what I had done, and I said, I had made a pledge to God. And he said, would you serve as adjunct professor? I started teaching in Tougaloo in April of 1970, teaching kids how to prepare for law school or how to decide if you want to go to law school. In addition, I taught political and legal analysis and political theory. I was doing that while I was employed with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Law full time. That was a commitment that I had to have. And I'm so thankful because I've had young people tell me, had you not told me what to expect or prepared us or introduced us to lawyers who had gone to law school, I would freak out. So, that's why I feel that all of us have that responsibility to our young people. My parents instilled that in all of us, and I sometimes think it's to our detriment. But there's a commitment that I think we as African Americans must have for our legacy and our legacies to our young people. Share with them the experiences. We have too much talent that we owe it to our folks to pass it on. We don't do that. And I think I referenced Standing on My Sister's Shoulders, the documentary where Joan Surratt, took her money, her time, her investments, and put together this excellent documentary where African American women are talking about how the role that we play in the shaping of the policies of the nation on our individual turfs, in our individual communities. And it's you have Joan, you have Dora, you have Elsie, who is really one of I admire her. Words can't express the admiration I have for her. And then there were white women who worked alongside of us. So it was like black women and white women coming together in the role that we play. You need a black really, and those folks. But I do think that that was one of the things I think was reinforced at Tougaloo, is having a responsibility to pass it on,
Mhm.
keep the dream alive. If you got to the top, you weren't anywhere because all you had to do was one move and you were back where you started. So try to improve the situation as you move. Bring others with you. Lift as you climb.
Where did you go from Tougaloo?
From Tougaloo, I went to the University of Mississippi.
Okay.
And before that, I went to, they had this program where they would try experimenting on young African Americans from the South to see if we were normal. And there were about 8 of us. I think there were like 4 from
Where was
Jackson
this?
State. It was a program that was called Intensive Summer Studies Program. Ford Foundation sponsored it. And they would take African American youth from traditionally historically black colleges in the South and take us and put us up at Yale or Harvard or Columbia or Princeton or those places, and they wanted to see whether or not we could function. I was selected to go to Harvard, and Ed Cole was selected to go to Yale. And first time we'd ever flown, we were on Southern Airlines. Our parents were there, and I got 2 B's in the seat. And I thought, that was just one. I don't know what Ed got. I think Ed got it. He said he got an A. I don't believe it. That was an experience that I'll never forget. And then the next summer, I went to New York, Camp Tri-Woody, where I served as camp counselor for Jewish kids.
What was the name again?
Camp Tri-Woody.
Tri-Woody.
Trywoodie. It was in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Upstate. All right, and then what did you confront up there?
I think that was something that was just probably the most relaxing part of my youth.
So that was like a summer off.
It was. It really was. And away from everything. And I was
Beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I went back. It was the area where near Hyde Park as well. And I had gotten, my experiences at Tougaloo, getting into the trouble with the administration. And it was all of that part that I had to get away from and deal with. And I still find that when I'm troubled, doing what I believe is fundamentally right, even though it may not be popular, I have to get away. And so I always think that I was trying to reflect it and I commune with God. I really do.
Surely. I can understand that. Okay, so you come back from New York that summer. You're ready to go back to war. What happened? Where'd you go?
At Tougaloo, my senior year, Tougaloo was going through a change where I later learned that the president had said that he was going to soft pedal civil rights. I never knew that.
What year was that incident?
That was in 1966.
66.
And even if I had known, it wouldn't have mattered. Because I didn't feel like I should soft pedal anything. And I had learned from my experiences at Tougaloo that if there's a situation that needs to be corrected, if you're blessed with certain gifts, you correct it. Especially if it relates to some injustice being perpetuated. And I was committed to bring about change, and I made a decision then. Until God calls me home, if there's an injustice, I'll try to correct it. Well, a student was killed at Jackson State, Ben Brown.
Oh, Ben, okay.
Yeah, and how well I know.
Okay.
How well I know. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And Hermel Johnson was president of the student body. Hermel called me. He was a Q and I was Delta. He called me. He was president of fraternity. I was president of our sorority. And he called me and told me they needed help. Well, I asked the administration, Mr. Randall, to see if we could borrow a bus to take the kids over. He said no.
Oh, where?
Over to Jackson State because they were having a protest. He said no, so we got faculty members, and here we go again. We got white faculty members to volunteer their cars to take us into town. So we went into town, and Charles Evans was there, Marion Wright Adelman, she was Marion Wright, and she was there. We just had a good time. Well, we did our marching and protesting. It was time to get back, and we were getting ready to have the same folks that brought us in to take us back in shifts. Well, the chief of police and Alan Thompson, the mayor at that time, for whom the airport is named after, which is
Full
very,
name is,
which, which is terrible, Alan C.
Full
Thompson,
name,
Alan C.
yeah.
Thompson.
Yes.
Yes, I can't get all that one, and not Meg Evans, but Evans.
Uh.
But they put out a curfew that we had to be off the streets by 6 o'clock. The curfew came to my attention about 5:15, which meant there was no conceivable way I could get all those kids back to campus. So I got Richard Moman and Benny Thompson. Benny Thompson was a bus driver. And I asked him to drive, we got a Richard Moman's red truck to drive us back to campus so we could get a bus. And knowing that if we explained the situation, they would give us the bus, let us use the bus. Got back and I asked Mr. Randall, and he said the only way, how did you get back? How did you get in there? I told him he could get back the same way. So I said, no, we got to do better than that. So I asked Ben if he had a key. Benny Thompson, to the bus.
Right.
And he said yes. So I asked him if he would take the bus. So we used the bus without permission. Came back and got the kids, put them back on the bus, and took everybody back to campus. And Ed King was with us at that time as well. So we stopped at the gate, and President Owens asked who was in charge. And I said I was, as president of the student body. And he said, okay, well, you just tell everybody to get off the bus. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that because you're going to expel everybody who's on the bus. And we had some words, and he wanted to know whether or not they were going to get off the bus. And somebody said, no, they're not getting off the bus. And he said, well, how do you intend to get back to the room? So, I just asked him, I just told him that we had to take the kids back to where we picked them up, and that was over by the old barn where there was no light. So he got off the bus.
Who was he?
President Owens got off. He had just stepped up on the bus to see who was in there. So he got off the bus, and he said, well, you're not going to do what I asked you to do, or something to that effect. And I told him, I just hold me responsible. So I asked Ben to close the door, and he closed the door, and we drove on. Even though he was telling me to stop, we drove on.
On the campus?
To the campus, and went on behind the campus and let the kids get out. Everybody went their separate ways, and nobody could prove who was on the bus.
Right.
So the next morning, I got notice that I had to come and appear before the student judiciary, and the results was that they wanted to expel me from school and do something to Benny and also do something to Richard Moman. Well, it didn't really bother me because I had already been accepted at Ole Miss Law School in October of the previous year, and this was May, so I really didn't care. I had finished my college, I had done all my, for all practical purposes, I had graduated, and I was taking hours I didn't need to take, so I was okay. But
they wouldn't let you march.
They would not let me march. And the decision was made. They had gotten to some of the students, and they said I had to. They wanted to suspend me, and then it was appealed to the faculty. Now I'm telling you the truth. This is what's just sort of got me more than anything else. There were half and half, blacks, half whites, on the faculty. One professor voted for me, and that was Dick Johnson, who was still in Tulip. He taught my daughter, and when I see him, I just want to cry. He has always done what he thought was right. He stood up, even though Ralph Huff, who was chairman of that committee, and he was like VP, even though he wanted to side with me, he was white, by the way, he wanted to side with me, he didn't have the courage to do it, but Dick Johnson did.
Johnson did.
And I tell you right now, he had more, I will never forget that. And they decided that I could graduate, but I couldn't march. So
what was the vote? Do you know?
Well, I know the only one who voted for me.
He was the only one?
He was the only one.
Dick Johnson was the only one?
Dick Johnson was the only faculty member. And, there's some faculty members who were on there, and I just don't even want to go there with them.
That's all right.
So, and one is still there, so I don't even want to deal with it. But what happened was that the students heard about it. And they decided they wanted to close the gates and not let anybody out. And we did. We closed the gates to the college campus. The old gates had never been closed. We closed.
You closed it?
We closed the gates. We closed the gates, we stopped all deliveries. I think it lasted like 2 or 3 days. And what happened was, one of the guys, we sort of got to be kind of renegades because I had not had any sleep for like 4 days and 4 nights. And one of the guys wanted to burn the mansion.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, that, you know, we were militant back then. And I realized, I didn't believe in that anyway, but it dawned on me, my records were in the mansion. And I had gotten into Ole Miss Law School, and we weren't going to burn my records.
No, okay.
So we sort of had it, and the next day, the press came down, Time Magazine and News, the Time Magazine and New York Times, and some other publication came down to do an interview, and they wanted me to talk about Tougaloo. And I couldn't. And Robert Smith was on this side. He was a doctor, college doctor. And on this side were the students. And I'm standing out there in front of Jameson Hall. And I'm hearing students say, tell it like it is, you know, and blow Tougaloo down. And I'm seeing Robert Smith, and I'm hearing my mom and daddy in my mind saying, Tougaloo is, you know, we love Tougaloo. And I just all these things came, and I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. The next thing I knew, I was waking up at Dr. Smith's office. And the next thing I remember is I woke up in my parents' bed at home.
At home. They came and got you.
They came and got me. And I remember my father, first thing I remember waking up is I remember him asking me, what have you learned or something from this experience? And I don't remember responding to it, but I do remember him asking me, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it? Would you did? And I remember saying, yes, sir. And he then left about that time and went to see Dr. Owens, because he and Dr. Owens were schoolmates, not classmates. And he was very concerned because nobody had contacted him while I was doing, you know, all that was going on. And he had a similar experience with my sister. You know, she was there and they didn't contact him. She was not going to class. So he and Dr. Owens had a good conversation. And what I recall from that conversation is Dr. Owens told my father that he had told me that we were going to soft pedal civil rights, and that he had asked me not to do what I did, and that was not true. And I just that really got me, and it was an experience that that did not have to be said because it was not true. And my father later learned that I was not lying to him when I told him that was not true. I have always been.
Daddy can be very hard.
Yeah, let me tell you, my daddy.
My girls tell me that all the time.
But I'm gonna tell you this though. When your daughter tells you, I had an excellent relationship with my father. In fact, I tell people I think he was the only man that I ever loved. And I say that knowing what I'm saying.
I understand.
He believed me. It just hurt so badly that it had to come to that. I did not expect. I did not expect at that time certain things from white men. But I guess I had a false expectation that black men were different. And it was that experience that led me to believe that people are people.
That sobered you up?
And that really got to me. So when I went to Ole Miss from that experience, I went wanting to continue to believe that people, you looked at people for who they were, not color. And when I went to Ole Miss,
we are human first.
That's number one.
Oh yeah.
I realized at Ole Miss that racism was so entrenched that while some whites who were basically good folks who had good hearts were still victims of the racist society in which we were raised.
Oh, yes.
And
we're all scarred.
exactly.
None of us could escape.
Exactly. And that part gave me the strength to continue to do things at Ole Miss.
Well, tell us about that, about some of your experiences.
Well, I made a conscious decision after being there for a while that
you went up there with you, any of your pals?
Oh yeah, there were 6 black African Americans from There were 6 from Tootle and Jackson State and Alcorn that went together. We all went
Yeah,
together.
went together.
Norset Stewart was my
Oh,
roommate.
Narset. Yeah.
Norset is my heart. She was the best
Where
woman
is
in my wedding.
Narset?
She's at home.
She
She's
would
at
never
home.
talk to me. You know
Well,
that?
let me tell you this. about
Narset
that.
would never. I could get 2 words out of her.
I tell you what, Norset is a very private person.
Very.
But a person
Extremely.
who really was there for me,
Mm-hmm.
because Norset was like 10 or 12 years older than I was, but I didn't know it. When I came to my room and I thought she was my roommate,
Yeah.
and I said, "Tell this little girl is so nice. She doesn't talk much."
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized she was AKA, and I said, "Oh Lord, I can't have an AKA roommate." But then I realized that she had so many experiences in life that helped me.
Mm.
She had taught school for 10 or 12 years.
Yes, exactly.
She had a master's in political science. She graduated from Clark College in Atlanta.
I didn't know whether she thought I was dumb or trifling or both.
Probably both.
Yeah, probably both.
Now, when I said it's hard on people that she likes,
I don't think.
she is hard.
Mm.
But she lost her mother.
Oh.
Miss Rosa died at age 102, I believe.
Mm.
And we had a funeral in September.
Mm.
But Norset was one, a guy named Albert Gardner, George Nichols, who practices in Canton now,
Yeah.
Andrew Marlowe Gambrell, who was killed in a car wreck, a brilliant man, Geraldine Harrington from Louisville, who was a Jackson State student.
Geraldine?
Geraldine Harrington.
Mm. Is she,
She's in Alabama. She married Orrin Page, and they had a son.
nice.
Orrin Page is the judge. He used to be the city judge here.
Okay.
Yeah, Orrin.
All right, I remember.
And so they were there with me, but I made a choice that I knew I went to school to get out academically, but I was not going to be relegated to being Yasser and Glenn. I mean, I'd never done that.
Mm-hmm.
So if there were inequities on the social scene or the ability to interact and be a part of the law school, I was not going to turn my ear to that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got there,
Who was your greatest influence at the instructor's level at Ole Miss? What do you say?
Probably Joel Blast. Joel Blast was from Poplarville, white Catholic, who later became Supreme Court Justice, but was defeated.
He was then teaching at the law school?
Right. And he was one of the ones that told him that they better not mess with me, because if you mess with her, she stays here too long. Would you rather have her here too long and get her out of here?
Mm-hmm.
But he was a very fine person. He was one who
Who was your
admitted-
dean when you were there?
I was recruited by Dean Josh Morse.
Josh
Morse.
Morris.
M-O-R-S-E. And Josh was from that area too. He's from Poplarville area. But Josh had realized that Mississippi had to make some changes in order to move ahead. And also, Ford Foundation was putting up money for the university, so they had to do what was necessary to get that money. The legislature soon got rid of Josh Morris because he had really come in and tried to get African American enrollment up. During that time, after they fired him, it was Joel Blessed, not Joel Blessed, Buckley.
Joel Buckley?
No, it was Buckley, B-U-N-K-L-E-Y. He was one that the legislature selected. And then I think before I left, it might have been Parham Williams, acting dean, P-A-R-H-A-M. Parham Williams.
Pardon me. I'm trying to remember. Aaron and I went up there to meet with the top faculty, the dean, etc., in an effort to get. I remember we met with the dean and had to describe the pressures that were on the black students at the time. And of course, our objective was to try to relieve some of the pressure on the black. I don't know that we ever succeeded. Maybe you can tell me. I don't.
Well,
I don't know that we ever succeeded.
I don't think you can. I don't, because one of the professors used the word nigger in class, and I raised my hand and asked how do you pronounce that, and he said nigger. And I said, how do you spell that? And he said N-E-G-R-O, and I said, no, sir, I mean the word that you just said. And he said N-E-G-R-O, nigger. And there are just some things you can raise issues and put it on the table, but you can't, my dad always told me this until he died, you can't change a man's heart with legislation. And I argued, I said, oh, I will. I'm going to sue him, take him, keep him in court so bad. Oh, yeah, I won't do that. And I tell my daughter that now. You can force a man to do something, but you can't change his heart. You know, just like the killing, the killing's indictment.
Right.
You know, that's just why people say, oh, Judge, that's a hollow victory until he's indicted, until he's convicted.
But
You know,
he never did.
it's a hollow victory because
He's been allowed to live
the
74
man
years,
has had
79
a
years,
wonderful life.
done everything he's wanted to do.
Exactly.
Huh?
And now it's
So-
time for him to check out, he thinks, and then, you can't do that. And then you got people up there, in that area of the state, everybody knew that.
Mhm.
It didn't take a grand jury to come together and put that together.
Absolutely.
Everybody knew.
Everybody.
And everybody knows there's still others that are running around. You know, so, you know, I guess I say that to say that at Ole Miss, at the university, and I don't like to ever call it Ole Miss, but at the University of Mississippi, I realized that the struggle there will continue forever.
Mm.
And I just had to tighten up and be prepared to do it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just became a kind of person that, you know, my experiences at Ole Miss are too numerous to talk about, you know, being called nigger and, you know, and fighting, physically fighting and calling the game to be stopped and, you know, closing the campus down when Dr. King was assassinated. And, you know, it just really, it really sort of makes you weary thinking about it. But I'm thankful that I had that experience because there is nothing in this world that gets better. And there's nothing in this world I can adjust to.
That's all right.
And,
And in retrospect, did you do what you needed to do while you were there? Or,
okay.
where's my television? Where is it?
Let's see, we can get this, yeah, we need to call it, we got
Where
it.
is
we
it?
get it. Okay,
Can you see if it's going around?
it's moving.
Thank you, ma'am. Talk.
Um,
So as you look back on your days at Ole Miss, all right, and the relationships that you formed and understanding all of the pressures that were put on you and your fellow black students, okay? You came through how?
my mother's
In one
prayer.
piece?
Well, I came through because of my mother's prayers, and she wrote me a poem. My mother was a poet. She wrote me a poem when I had been there almost like 5 months. And it's a prayer to God saying, please take care of my child who's black. By no fault. The strange thing about it, she said, it indicated by no fault of hers, she's black.
Right.
And you
I
made
said
her.
it.
You made her, so please protect her. And it really was, it had little meaning to me then. Because I felt that I survived because I was mean as hell. And I wasn't going to let anybody turn me around. Yes. Well, you know, I was tenacious. And I just tell them that was how I viewed myself. I had to be mean. I had to protect me. I couldn't count on the security.
That was your defense mechanism?
That's it. And, you know, I had to forget that I was a young person who was developing. I had to forget that I should have been like a flower. But I had to be a cactus.
There's an interesting question I got to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
You understood the discrimination because of race.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the establishment was concerned, you were also discriminated because of sex.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But blacks, men discriminated against you also. You were subject to that kind of sexism and discrimination while you were there?
To this extent. My response is this. I wasn't. I mean, they may have tried to, but it didn't bother me because I knew, being one of 6 girls, I knew you had to take care of yourself.
Sure.
Now, what had happened when I was in Tougaloo, a lot of the guys would be chauvinistic and they would say, well, Connie doesn't count
Yeah, right.
because she wanted the boys.
Sure.
So, you know, I personally, I have gone places with guys, and we slept on the floor together. When we formed the Black American Law Student Association at Rutgers. I was the only female there. We stayed up 2 nights.
Is that Boston?
Boston. I was one of the national founders.
Oh, okay.
We stayed up 2 nights putting that together. We had 2 rooms. Nobody ever looked at me as being a desirable, because I was just one of the guys. But every now and then they would say, "Oh, look, Constance, and we got to tighten up." But I've always been, if it has been a problem, I certainly didn't recognize it. But if it became a problem, I would deal with it and get it off the table. Because I couldn't fight back then. I couldn't fight chauvinism. I had to prioritize my efforts, and my efforts were to destroy and dismantle racism.
But you had to condition yourself.
I had to condition myself, and you reach a point where you pretty much accept certain things. Like when I became president of the student body, there were some guys who said I couldn't handle it, but I showed them I could handle it. And the same thing.
Well, the struggle for race was more important to you.
It was more important, but also, I take this position that when I went to Ole Miss, University of Mississippi, there were whites who said I couldn't make it, there were blacks who said I couldn't make it.
Sure.
And my intention was to accomplish what I went there to accomplish, and that was to get a degree, get out. But while I was there, to make significant changes. I am thankful to God that I was able to accomplish both.
Have mercy.
Not
easy.
Now, and walking down the streets, walking down to the walk, there was a guy who was in a very prominent position now, in the news all the time, white guy, redneck. We would clash almost every morning on the sidewalk. I mean, physically clash, because he expected black people to get off the sidewalk. And as my ex-husband, Jim Harvey, said, I didn't get off or move over for anybody, white, period. So invariably, we would clash, we would hit each other, bump each other on the sidewalk. Well, on this particular morning, I wasn't feeling good. And he clashed me and hit me a little too hard. Next thing I knew, I had him down on the ground.
Very unladylike.
Oh, yeah, unladylike.
Mama would say very unladylike.
Unladylike, but notwithstanding, I whooped him.
You whooped him?
I whooped him. And every time from then on, he saw me coming.
Yes.
He would get off the sidewalk.
He got off the sidewalk.
The joke, that was a joke about it. But to me, I hated to do that. But, I had to deal with professors who were racist. I had to deal with classmates who were racist. I had to deal with the difficulty in trying to grasp a concept, a legal concept, when I knew in reality it didn't work like that. I had to deal with my parents being concerned about me. I had to deal with my personal safety, people calling me, threatening me. I had to deal with all of that. And, and I often wondered what kept me going. I still tell people it was my mama's prayers and my grandfather's prayers. But for the grace of God.
But also your own grit.
My own grit, yeah.
Don't discount.
Oh, yeah, I'll admit that. And I'll say that,
It ain't easy to defeat you.
Oh, no, I got to tell my I take Aaron's position. When you don't hear my voice anymore, you know I ain't him.
Yeah.
I'm evermore gone.
All right, that's good. That's good. Okay. And, all right. So that really helped to form you for your career.
And the experiences I had at Ole Miss.
What you had to go through up there.
Right now, it's so funny. White guys will say, hey, kind of son, say, yeah, you really have changed. My response is always, no, not changed, still the same kind of just different approaches and a different stroke. I see life with the same glasses that I had on then. I just have learned to pick my battles and prioritize.
Now, Constance, you're learning every day you live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we do change as we go along.
Well,
we don't change fundamentally.
That's what I guess. That's what I told. Yeah, that's what I told them. As far as when they asked me to join the Rotary Club, all white males club.
Where was that?
In Farmers.
Oh Lord.
You know what I said? Yes.
What'd you tell them?
I told them yes.
You told them?
And people look at me. You do what?
Did you join it?
Sure do.
You joined?
I joined. I've been a member for a year. the blessing is this.
You've made it.
They are as awestruck, and they were as awestruck when I said yes.
They found out you breathe, and you bleed,
And
you can cry
Thank
if
you.
necessary.
and I can sit in a room.
Mhm.
Well, that was the only way. Oh, University taught me that. In addition, when I went to work in state government, we think we got a problem now with Bob. Racism was so bad in 1980.
Mhm.
I really started to work with Cliff Finch in 1978 as fair hearings officer. First African American had a position. I had people to call me and threaten me. If
What
I-
year was that? That was 76.
1978.
78?
Yeah, but he became governor in
Governor in
76,
76.
but I became a fair hearing officer in 78.
Okay.
And, you know, I realized then that my experiences at Tougaloo and my experiences at the University of Mississippi School of Law prepared me for what was ahead. I remember Benny Thompson and I in 1974 were invited to be a part of Governor Waller's multicultural,
I was on that.
minority, that's right, sure was.
It was-
But that's exactly right, Minority Advisory Council.
He didn't want me.
He didn't want a lot of us on that. But his advisors had told him to go ahead and get, bring them on, something to that effect. But we were in this meeting, Herman Glacier was his legal counsel.
Oh, yeah.
And I never forget the meeting, he came in, first meeting that we had attended, he came in, everybody stood up, the old school. And Mr. Hawkins, E.T. Hawkins, who was my principal, had got me on there, he and Mr. Bishop. And they looked to us, looked at Ben and I were sitting together, and he said, you going to stand up. It wasn't the governor, it said Mr. Hawkins. And I said, for what?
Right.
And he said, oh, the governor coming in, get ready to come in.
Governor.
No, sir, I can't stand up. And that just, Mr. Hawkins was so mad. But when the governor wanted everybody else to stand up, me and Benny was sitting over here. So he looked over and he laughed. And I won't ever forget that laughter because he was embarrassed, but he also, it gave me the impression he understood we were going to go stand up. And he subsequently called Benny Thompson the petty politician from Bolton. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking Benny was alderman or mayor, not sure.
I think he was all.
Yeah, that's right. But I learned then, in working in state government, when Governor Winter called me and asked me if I would work with him, come to work with him, I laughed. I said, this man got to be out of his mind. Because I was director of legal services. And I called my daddy that night. I said, Daddy, guess what? I said, Governor Winter called me and wanted to know if I work with him. He said, what did you tell him? I said, that's what I'm going to do. He said, no, because you can't handle it. And I said, I can't handle it. He said, I never forget, he said, no, he said, you can raise all kind of hell outside the system, but you're weak. I think he didn't call me a punk, but he said something that let me know that he didn't think I could handle it. And within 15 minutes, I had called Governor Winter back and told him I'll take it. I'm going to get a leave of absence for my job. And I think that decision, and I accepted it because I did it, it was like a bet. And he told me, you won't last 6 months if you go. I lasted 16 years. Had I not had the introduction and orientation that the university gave me, and the rude reception, insensitive, cruel at times, reception, I never could have survived state government.
Okay, let's back up just a little bit. You're leaving out a whole lot that I know about. All right? And let's see, you went to work for legal services at what point?
Okay, when I got out of law school, I had a job already waiting on me at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law.
What year was that?
That was 1970. I got that job in 1969. Jim Robertson, who is now U.S. District Court Judge in Washington, he came up and recruited me, and I was hired in October of '69. I went to work I graduated January 28th. I got on payroll January 30th.
All right.
2 weeks later, I was in court in Simpson County representing John Perkins.
The good reverend.
Yes.
You know who got him out there?
Uh-huh, yes. The whole, I mean, I think sometimes he forgets.
He forgets.
Yeah,
He's coming here to be interviewed
well,
by me.
And you need, well, you need to remind him, that you're gonna have to do that. That was the first time in my life that I really realized that I was not as, the university had not prepared me for what was ahead, because in that case, everybody in the courtroom stood up when the judge walked in, except me. I was thinking it was more of a chauvinistic thing. I didn't.
Was that court in Mendenhall?
Mendenhall, yeah. And it was Judge McFarland. I'll never forget that. And they had John Perkins charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor, Georgia Ann Quinn, little girl. And I know I had to put her on the stand, but I didn't realize that she stood. I thought the men were standing, and everybody in the courtroom was white men, so I just assumed white men were just standing. And the judge said something. I said something, so he said he would take court takes a 5-minute recess, and I need to see you, young lady. And I said, oh my God, what have I done? The first time. And he took me back in chambers. That was the sweetest man I've ever met in my life. His name was Judge McFarland, Robert McFarland. His brother was later became security chief for Jimmy Carter. That man died 6 months later.
After that? Mm-hmm. After that incident?
Yes. And I went to his funeral at the Mendenhall Baptist Church. And I thought it was going to be a ride. But I really felt compelled. And his court reporter was Marie Sullivan. And
were you the only black at the funeral?
Oh, yeah.
You were the only one?
Only black at the funeral.
Oh,
But I really pretty much forgot, because he was so good. You know, for a man to call me back and tell me, it was so funny. He said, I assume that you have not, this is your first court case, something like that. I said, yes, sir. How did you guess? Because you don't know what in the world is going on. And we had the best conversation. And his court reporter was back there, because I guess she just assumed that he was going to meet her. And she told me, and I stayed in touch with her for about 3 years. She told me that he had utmost respect for you, your courage and your bravery. And when he died, it just sort of made me start dealing with some things. But I learned a lot with the lawyers committee.
What's the toughest case you had? The lawyers committee, can you remember? Yeah, you remember.
The one that caused me to stop practicing civil rights law for at least 12 years was losing the Jackson State case when the students were killed. That took a personal toll on my life, and because I permitted white lawyers to take over to win the case, and I did a lot of soul searching. I realized that the jury, it was all white jury, and Walter Nixon was the judge. I just realized so much with that. During that time, before we had that trial in 72, I had tried other cases like, how we controlled the RNA.
That was a tough.
Well, the RNA, I didn't have the RNA case before the Jackson State case. RNA came after.
Oh, did it come after?
It came after Jackson State, because I was not employed with the lawyers committee when I had the RNA case.
Oh, okay.
I was employed with the Highway Patrol case came before Jackson State case. They were both before Judge Nixon.
Okay.
The Highway Patrol case was really exciting to me.
Yeah, you got a lot of satisfaction.
Oh, Lord, yes, a lot of satisfaction. Plus, Judge Nixon didn't want to do right, and he had to, because we had the Fifth Circuit watching him, and Aaron was doing, and then my ex-husband was the reason I got into that lawsuit, because he found the plaintiffs and all that. It was really an exciting opportunity working with Frank, even though we didn't get along at all.
Frank Park?
Frank Park, yeah. We were both very committed, but Frank was brilliant, and and I just didn't feel that. I didn't believe in determining priorities. I loved Frank. I loved his work, his commitment.
I thought he was a bit off out there.
Oh yeah, well he was.
Yeah.
And I was one that fought. We'd fight. Once we got physically fight, but that case, the Jackson State case, is the one that really broke me.
Why?
It broke me because the students looked to me, because I was the one that got their retainers and their confidence. They looked to me, and I was a young girl. I was 23
But that all?
when I got those retainers. I was 24 when that case was tried. And the guys that came down to, quote, help me, unquote, try the case were seasoned veterans. They were like 55, and they were with the biggest law firm in the world, Bass, Swain and Moore. And I had to give them control of the case. But I was willing to do that to win. And when we did win, then it made me furious.
Yeah.
And I started dealing with that.
Where was that tried?
That was tried in Biloxi. In Biloxi, so was the RNA case. And that's right, in Biloxi. And that's why the RNA case didn't surprise me, because I had already been before Judge Nixon. Nothing he could do that would surprise me. And that case, Jackson State case, because I had developed such a personal bond with the plaintiffs, which I try not to do from now on. But Philip Gibbs' widow and his children and his sisters, Mrs. Burton, James Earl Green's mother, and I are still friends to this day. In fact, all of those people, all those folks are my friends. And I just couldn't protect them. And then things came out of trial about Mrs. Burton having cancer, and I had told her that nobody would know that, and the judge made her answer the question. Just a lot of things. And I really, that made me make up my mind that if I ever tried another civil rights case, I really wouldn't get involved. My sisters were on campus when that happened. That one made me just realize that everything I learned in law school was indeed a lie. And that justice, and that made me change my outlook, and I became much more active in politics.
More politically active.
More politically active, and to this day, even though I'm practicing law full time, I'm not really full time. I believe in making certain that we keep that balance, because it's the only way you're going to have change. And if we lose the battle, everything that we have gathered is gone.
Well, that turns my attention and my interest to asking, because I usually ask most of my interviewees this, but, the whole political scene in Mississippi, when I came here, there were only 4 blacks elected to public office. They were in Mount Bayou. So I think I have grown up in Mississippi with the entrance of black people into political activity, right? And being elected to public office. We did a lot of things wrong, right? A lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of us took stances that were unpopular, and that most black people would not support.
Exactly.
Will you please talk a little about your view of independent black politics?
I guess my introduction to the political scene was with Mrs. Hamer and the Freedom Democratic Party. In fact, I know it was. I went to Louisville. We had the mock election and worked alongside of her. And I was never a party person, because I had serious problems with the Democratic Party, with James Eastland and Stennis and those guys, and and rednecks and racists running on the Democratic ticket, and us being encouraged to support the Democratic Party.
Well, there were no Republicans here when
no,
we started out.
Not really.
No.
No one. And then the independent route. That's when Lawson ran she was the first black person to run for judge here in Hines County. She ran as independent, and some people fault her about saying that she split the vote. She permitted a Republican guy named, I can't think of the guy's name, Bale, and he beat Carl Guernsey, who was supposed to be so, quote, good. I started looking at the political scenery, and I still look at it, strangely. But there's some things that are fundamentally not a part of me. My father had problems with Aaron, and I loved Aaron, because I thought what he was doing was good. My father had serious problems with his methods. And left he stayed in the NAACP, but he left the Democratic Party and went to the Republican Party.
Your father?
My father, which sort of distorted my position because I resented that. When he decided he went, and he was there during the time that Nixon was in office, I believe, and what they were trying to do is get enrolled into the black community. And my dad was the kind of person that you couldn't buy him regardless. But he felt that what he was seeing in the Republican Party, he could identify that more so than he could with Aaron and the Democratic Party. So it put me in a bind. So when he decided he was going to run for alderman,
Your dad?
my dad, he asked me if I would be his coordinator, his campaign manager. This was in 1977.
77.
And I told him yes, but he'd have to run as a Democrat. And he laughed about it. He said, not living, here. So a couple of weeks later, he decided to change his mind, and so we got him elected. It was a very difficult battle. So I understand that mindset. I understand that. But I also understand that the individuals who were in the Democratic Party when we were still mentally and physically enslaved during my lifetime, some of those, majority of those, moved to the Republican Party when black folks started getting active roles in the Democratic Party.
Right.
I can't get past that.
The hardcore
racist moved and went to the Republican Party.
That was forecast.
That's right. I have difficulty in getting past that, and perhaps it will. I have.
Explain that, because I don't understand why that you should have difficulty with that.
No,
understanding it.
No. What I'm saying is that for me to embrace an individual who wants to wear the label of a Republican, I cannot do that.
No.
Because I can't get past that. But there are still some Democrats who are as racist.
Still in the Democratic Party?
Still in the Democratic Party. So that's what I tell people. I don't play that game of, he's a Democrat, so I was, well, now, if I know something about him, it's all right. But sometimes it all depends on how I feel. If you're a Republican, I'm going to look at you real hard. On the other hand, if you're a Democrat and anything that you do is inconsistent with what the Democratic Party stands for, I'll look at you hard too.
But don't we invest too much in the Democratic Party?
We have invested too
Aren't
much.
our expectations really a little bit too high?
We expect the Democratic Party to do what's right.
Yeah.
That's not popular.
Not in
speed, no, nowhere. So you're right.
Not in line.
You're right. But like I tell people, I don't, because like I told my dad, because he was married with Aaron, don't jump over here. Stay over there and fight, like you taught us to do. If the situation, if the car won't crank, you find out what's wrong with it if you can. Don't just up and leave your car and start walking. Bend over backwards to try to make it responsive. But on the other hand, I have not taken the position that simply because you're a Republican, you're evil. I've never taken that position.
Okay. All right.
I take the position that you do what is politically expedient, what is convenient for you in your lifetime, unless you seriously reflect on why we are all placed on this earth. There are two.
Now that's heavy.
Oh, it is, it's heavy, but it's intended to be that way, and I have always maintained that all of us are here to make this a better world.
Are we to always have to choose between expediency and truth?
No.
But we have been called to do that.
Right. We have
most
been
of
called.
our lifetime.
We have been called. That's because we're God's chosen people. And that's because we have been through, and like I tell James Weldon Johnson, we have trodden and we have tread. We are strong people.
Who is we?
African Americans who know why they're here.
Okay. I much think that we are varying strengths.
Yeah.
And it's really
Yeah.
hard, it's really difficult to find a truly strong individual on either side of the group. It's very difficult. Well, for me, it's been very difficult. Consequently, I've always had to choose, like you have always had to choose, between the lesser of two evils. Because the perfect choice does not exist in this lifetime for us.
It cannot exist because we permit the political and the things of the world to influence us.
Exactly right.
So, the
Exactly right.
question that comes, my daughter often, and I'm concerned that I have not disappointed her, because she often asks, Mama, why do you continue to give so much of yourself to others?
Mhm.
And the only response that I can give her is because it makes me happy.
No, it isn't.
That's the only response.
No, it is not.
That's what I
No,
give.
it is not.
What do I give?
Because it's the right thing to do.
Okay. I am
There's a difference.
I am happy when I am doing the right thing. I may be stressed out, but I'm happy and content.
But you don't do it to be happy.
Oh, no, But okay,
You
okay.
do it because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, but you walk around and you're doing the right thing and you're miserable.
Hey,
See,
this life is misery.
yes, but we got to get past that.
Yes.
I equate my happiness
Mhm.
with doing what's right.
Yes.
So I very seldom, when asked how you feel about what you're doing, I very seldom say I feel miserable. I feel unhappy. I'm alone.
Mhm.
Many times in forest, I'm by myself.
Sure. Lonesome.
I'm happy and content.
Grieved.
I'm not walking out there,
But you did the right thing.
inner peace. And I guess that's my
You did the right
definition of happiness, is inner peace.
Mhm.
When I go to bed, if I have a client who puts up a retainer of $250, and they don't feel like I've done my job,
Mhm.
and they ask me for their money back,
Yes.
I may be the only lawyer who say, okay, come get it.
Come and get
Because if you can't, you're not going to send me to hell
it. Mhm.
over $250. You're not going to send me to hell over $1 million. People will ask me, you can get more if you charge more. That's right. But if I could take a quarter to heaven with me, it would make a difference. I can't.
Mhm.
I got to have that inner peace
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And I must say, I can't recall any night where I've gone to bed saying, Lord, if I don't wake up, I didn't do the right thing. I may go to bed crying because it's just pressure and frustrations that I can't handle.
Right.
But I don't ever recall going to bed saying, Lord, I did something today that I shouldn't have done. And I've searched my life, 58 years of my life. I've gone to bed crying saying, I shouldn't have cussed this man out. Something like that. But as far as actually hurting someone or doing something that caused me to toss and turn, personally doing, I can't, I've been so stressed out where I got so much on me. But as far as saying, can you justify what you've done? I've never had that experience. And maybe I'm more reflective now the older I get. Perhaps that I've been aware of it, intimately aware of it back when I was younger, I may not be able to say the same thing. But when I've been reflective, and I get on my knees at night and thank God for letting me do certain things, I can be mad when I'm on my knees. I don't fake it.
Mhm.
I can't say that I regret not having practiced law to make $1 million. I don't regret that.
Mhm.
I look at the contributions that I've made during 34 years of my practice and my service to state government. The majority of that was 16 years was with state government. I don't regret any of it. I take so much pleasure in seeing the changes that I personally participated in. 16 section fight, it took a lot out of my life. The mail-in voter registration took a lot out. Public education took a lot out of the kindergarten. Black folks don't get a bit of credit for it. And we were just physically, we were exhausted. I'm very pleased. And if the question had to be asked or the choice given, if you had $15 million in the bank, or if you had what experiences you've been fortunate enough to participate in, which would you choose? Just as content as I could be, knowing that I had used the talents that God gave me to make this a better place for my daughter to live, not survive, but to live. And of all the accomplishments that I participated in, I am most proud of her spiritual development and her understanding of the mandate that she continued. What little revolution I've tried to start and participate in when I close my eyes. And I'm thankful to God that she has that feeling. I just, like I tell her, when God calls me, I don't have any problems with saying, I'm ready to go. I ain't going to be ready to go. But I ain't going to be begging, saying, Lord, give me a chance to make somebody, do this for somebody. I don't have any problems with that. And I think all of the stress that I've been involved in has been worth it. And I look at, when I think of you and other individuals who gave their entire lives to, quote, the movement, unquote. We are so blessed to have witnessed a complete reversal.
What do you mean by that?
There are so many.
What do you call a complete reversal?
Instead of being on the outside, we're now on the inside. Now what we do,
on the outside,
mm-hmm.
on the inside. Mm-hmm. No, you got to do a little better.
Okay.
What are we on the outside? What were we on the outside of? It's rather, it's not difficult.
Assistant.
What are we? Are we part and parcel of the system?
Sure
now?
we are. Constance? Sure we are. Yes, we are. We need to admit that.
Now wait a minute. Now with the understanding. Let me say.
Yes, sir. Yes,
will
sir.
you let me say?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Part and parcel of the system. I don't ever count myself part and parcel of the system.
You are though.
And let me tell you why. Because there's certain beliefs, there's certain values, okay? Mm-hmm. There's certain activities, there's a certain conduct, right? Mm-hmm. That is part and parcel of the system. Now, I really take issue with you in describing yourself. Listen now, mm-hmm. as being part and parcel of the system, because by the very nature of the fact that you're still in struggle. And you're still,
they don't negate each other.
You are still struggling against principalities and powers, right? And important aspects of an unjust system. It's inherent in you to struggle against them.
But just because
That's why I say.
Well, okay, but you got to look at the realities of it. If this is one hand, this finger goes up when it's certain things happen. That finger is still part of the hand. You got to remember that, and that goes back biblically. We're all a part of the body. My finger, this thumb is a part of my hand. This little finger is part of my hand. And the danger finger is part of my hand.
You better make a separation.
No, let me finish.
If we're part of the body, right, I think it's the body is the church. The body is Christ's body.
Okay, but I use that analogy. I use that analogy to make sure that you understood.
Because you can't serve God and mammon now.
You have served both of them. You have served them, whether you can or not. You have. You probably do a poor job of it. But let me get back to what I was saying, and I'm not going to change my position on the system thing by saying
Yes,
because
ma'am. Yes,
we got the system is the political system. That's what I'm
And
talking
I've
about.
struggled against it all my life.
But you,
And I will struggle
no,
until
no,
the
you
last
can't,
breath
you can't say that
leaves
because
my body.
no, when you were a part of the city of Jackson, when you were part of Bennett's office, that was a system.
I was struggling
But that
against
didn't matter. That didn't matter. I ain't saying
I had to
no,
struggle against
I
the
didn't
bad.
say nothing about you struggling. We didn't say nothing about that. We talking about whether or not you were part of the system.
But that makes you, that at least allows you to identify yourself as not having wholly accepted this system, right? Then, and if that is so, you can object to being described as part and parcel of the system.
Owen,
You've lived a whole life of struggle.
Owen, I must say this.
You have
we
lived
got
a
to
whole
deal with
life of struggle.
but you got to deal with it. You can't deny it. I think that's part of the problem. Every one of us
Yes.
who got a job,
Yes?
being a part of a governmental entity and survived there, we were part of a system that we fought. And that we probably fought, I know I did and you did too, while we were a part of the system.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you have forgotten who you are. You try to become a part so you can understand. You're not going to be a part. You won't ever be a part of it. But at least you've been recognized, be it false or otherwise, as being a part of it. I criticized the Secretary of State's office. Hell, I was Assistant Secretary of State for 12 years.
Yeah, I know.
Now, the
Now, you
system,
know I know
okay, what I'm
that.
saying is
I'm
the
not
system,
naive now.
the system was good.
Turn it down. I understand the practicalities of life.
Okay.
I do understand
But
that.
you took issue
Yes, ma'am.
with my statement that
Yes.
we have lived to
Yes.
be outside the system and now we're inside the system. And, you think about it, you should not, because how else can that be articulated?
No. All right. In the context in which you put it, we all have always been inside of the system because there's no other, in quote, system as you describe it,
We have
for
not
us
always-
to be a part
We
of.
have not always been inside the system.
Oh, we were,
No,
even when we
no,
were
no,
enslaved,
no,
we were
not. We were not.
part of
We
the,
were
of the
not a
system.
part of the system because the system.
A part of the system without a voice.
No,
Right?
the system. No, the system. When I say system, I
Yes,
mean
ma'am.
the governmental entity that directs us, the governmental entity that makes the decisions. We couldn't make a decision because we couldn't vote.
That's all that's man-made.
But that's not my point. My point, what I said,
Yes, dear.
and I'm getting back to what I said and what
Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean and what I'm gonna say till I
I'm not
die.
supposed to argue with you.
I know, but you picked a good time to say that. But my point is that my daddy put it right when he told me, you can raise hell outside the system all you want, but you can't survive in the system. And I took him I took that job to prove him wrong. I survived within a structure that has been and probably and will continue to keep certain people out.
But-
I learned certain things while I
But
was in that
Constance,
system.
But you have maintained your integrity.
We're not talking about it. We ain't got nothing to deal with that. We ain't dealt with
Yes,
that
we
yet.
do.
No, we haven't. We haven't come to that yet. That's where I'm getting to.
Yes, ma'am.
I was a part of that system.
Yes.
Now, whether or not I adopted the morals and the values and the expectations and the attitudes of individuals in that system, that's a different story. That's not what I said.
Hey, that's what
I
counts.
said we were once denied an opportunity to even get in the system. I got in the system, you got in the system, whether you admit it or not, and you learned how the system worked. You
Now,
learned
that
how the
is-
system kept us down.
Yes.
Now, that's
I know
something.
that very well.
That's something that's worth. Why? Because had you not got inside the system, you wouldn't know how they think. And that's my point. I learned
Yes, sir.
when I went to the University of Mississippi School of Law, I learned how white folks think.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when I got out
Yeah.
and started practicing civil rights law, that was to my advantage because I understood how those jurors thought. When I went back and practiced on my own, I was much better prepared because I could presume, I could automatically tell you what the other side's position was and how they rationalize it. So when I went to state government, I had all of that behind me. I got inside of the system physically. I never lost contact with who I am. But I was physically inside the system, and I could
But
make
that's not the
decisions.
same thing.
No, you didn't, so I'm saying, you didn't let me finish my part.
Yes, ma'am.
What we got to do is we have been inside of the system.
Yes, ma'am. Well, yeah.
And what we got
Physically.
to get back out, I tell people now, and tell our folks who are not inside the system how to survive the system. My prayer is this. My prayer is that we can use our collective experiences
Yes, ma'am.
to improve the system, so that you won't have those who consider themselves to be separated from the
Then
system.
let me continue to be more the devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
I suggest that I have never counted myself as part and parcel of the system. Because in order to do that, you have to adopt all of the mores, the practices, and you have to be ideologically,
Well,
listen to me now.
I'm listening, but we
You have to
disagree on
be-
that.
Listen,
That's
you
something we
have to
can't
be
agree on.
ideologically secure in what the system espouses as its ideology. And you can never do that to me.
Not
I would not
necessarily.
allow you to do that.
Not
to me.
necessarily.
No, wait a second. Yes. Well, that's my belief.
Okay, that's your premise.
That's my belief.
Okay, so I can't adopt to that.
Okay.
I can't ascribe to that
Okay.
because I know
Yes, ma'am.
that you can be inside of a system and be a part of the system even though you disagree. That goes back to your hand. You are a finger on my hand. When I move you move with every other finger if I want you to do that. You are part of my hand. When you get ready to say, I am no longer a part of your hand, I can move. But you,
Now, Constance, I pledge allegiance to my God.
Mhm.
I do not pledge allegiance to this system.
Me either.
Okay?
Me
And I
either.
went to war and can say that, all right?
Uh-huh.
Now listen to me very good. When I was called to war in 1951,
Mhm.
I
You part of
did.
the system.
Now listen to me.
You
I
part of
didn't-
the system.
Will you listen?
No, because
No,
you
I
part
went
of the
because Mama told me to go.
Well, it doesn't
And
matter
don't follow
why.
that.
You
No,
are
no.
part of the system.
No.
Okay.
No, because I never signed a loyalty oath.
It doesn't matter. You part of the system.
Yes.
You part of the system.
Okay.
Now, whether or not you willingly became a part of the system is irrelevant. You were a part of the system. Whether or not you were a willing participant, that's a different issue.
Now I will say this. By the very nature of the fact that we live on this side of the ocean, okay, and we know no other home, from the practical standpoint, it's impossible to survive outside of the system completely.
So have you
Now,
not,
so I'm not a fool.
have you not come back and say all of a sudden you're going to agree with what I've been saying all the time?
Maybe I better quit
You look,
while
at,
you're
you, look,
ahead.
you look at your judges.
While
You
you're
look at your
ahead.
black judges. You look at your black judges.
Yes.
It brings home. I
Yes,
look at them
I
every
look
day.
at them, Lord.
Black judges are part of the system.
Oh, but look, that's
You
a different
got,
thing.
no, it's not. You got black judges
Yes, ma'am.
who are realize they're part of the system, but who
Yes.
don't adopt the mores and values of the system. They still know who they are.
Lord.
But they are a part of the system. They are part of the judicial system. I'm a part of the legal system. You know, but it does not mean that I embrace that the justice is blind, because I know damn well justice ain't blind. So what I'm saying, that gets back to what I said originally.
Yes, ma'am.
I have seen changes in the system.
Oh, of course you have. You
Many
have seen
things.
reforms galore.
Yes. My only concern,
Because this system allows itself to be reformed,
it does, but you
not basically changed.
change. You can't change.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I guess what I'm saying is this.
Yes, ma'am.
If the color used to be red, and it's now
Oops.
white,
Hold your point.
you can't use that thing.
Oh, this boy.
all right, that's all right, that's all right, that's all right. We don't have to,
Greg!
he said, I'm on.
Greg!
They gonna kill me.
Ah, this boy.
Don't even go there. Don't even go there. Don't even do it. I won't be terrible.
Okay, you want to quit for,
2:49.
and will you promise to come back for the second session?
Yeah, I just, oh, Lord, I just.
It is
And I'm-
20 minutes to 3. We're out of tape.
And what we-
You don't have any more tape?
Thought we were gonna do 2 sessions.
Oh, okay. All right, then we'll cut it
I
off.
wish you had told us, we were getting, I'm just.
We would just get, woo, we
Oh, yeah, we
ready.
were getting ready to fight.
You were,
Oh, baby, you did it right, because I was getting ready to take my shoe. No, we weren't.
You was
getting
gonna
ready to
knock my
fight.
brains out.
No, I'm so used to that.
you can't knock my brains out,
Huh?
because I am who I am.
Man, that's what I'm
I
saying.
am who I am,
No.
and you know who I
I
am.
was about to tell you, why do you think I
How you
came?
gonna knock my brains out?
Why do you think I came?